Okay, yesterday we wrote a text-based game that we called Magic Bowl, and in that game we learned how to use um, different commands to make the program run. Okay, we introduced the if statement, which is a selection statement. It's a control statement, and we also introduced the random command. Okay, now today we're going to go ahead and update that bowling game to mimic a true bowling game. Okay, now most bowling games, when you go bowl, uh, the game is composed of 10 frames. All right, and each frame is composed of two bowls, unless you, of course, bowl a strike. All right, and then the game ends um, at at the completion of the 10 frames. Now, we want to transform our program to mimic that, and we're going to do that today by using while loops. Okay. Now let's talk about a loop. Okay. In programming, a loop allows us to execute a sequence of code over and over. In programming, okay, all right, if we want to repeat execution of a sequence of operations, we use a loop. So a loop is a basic programming construct that allows repeated execution of a fragment of source code. Depending on the type of the loop, the code in it is repeated a fixed number of times or repeats until a given condition is true or exists. Okay? So these are the different types of loops. You have while loops, do while loop, a for loop, for each loop, nested loop. Today we're just going to introduce the while loops. And again, these are things that you will use in a game environment. Let's say if you're running down a path and you reach the end, or if you have to run and get some certain number of joules to give you energy, um, when you reach that number, you want that loop to exit and continue on. And so we use while loops. And the format of a while loop is you use the while statement and the condition, whatever that is, while true or while x is equal to 8 or not, then you go ahead and do what's found inside the loop. This is an example of what it will look like, and in most cases we use what's called a counter in loops to keep track of how many times the loop has iterated. Okay, so you see here we declare a variable counter of type n and we initialize it to 0. Then here we say while counter, okay, is less than or equal to 9, we want you to print out the number, okay, and then it will stop once we get to counter once that is equals or is greater than 9. Okay, so if I were to go ahead and execute that piece of code, I will show you what that looks like. Let me just grab it quickly. Okay, where is it? This is it. Yes. I'm going to go ahead and put this inside of the editor. All right, we're going to look at that piece of code to see how it functions. Okay, see here we have our counter, and we're going to initialize that to 0. And remember, it's going to count. And all this does, it adds 1 to the existing variable. So whenever you see plus and plus, you're just adding 1 to the existing variable. Okay, so here we are. We have um, counter of type integer, and we initialize it to 0. Then our statement, while counter is less than or equal to 9, we want you to do whatever is inside the piece of code here. And once that is done, then we want you to exit. So let's go ahead and add a piece of code at the end. I'm going to add console dot write line, and we're going to put done to let you know that it has indeed completed the process. Okay, so it's going to keep iterating, going round and round and round until it's done. So it's going to write the first number, which is 0. Going to come down here. It's going to add 1 to counter. It's going to come up here and check to see if counter is less than or equal to 9. At this point, it's going to be 1, and it will continue until it becomes 9. So let's go ahead and execute this piece of code and see what it looks. Oh, see, it did it. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 9, and then I added the done statement there. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at our program from yesterday, the bowling game. And you remember, it prints out a welcome message there, prompts you to get started. Then we bowl, and we just do a random function here to go ahead and get the score. Then we evaluate the score, and then we use a series of if statements to figure out if the score is equal to 10 it's a strike, if 0 is together, then it calls the calculate score, and then it prompts you to enter again. So we want to make adjustments to this so that it more simulates or mimics a true bowling game. Alright, so the first thing we want to do, we want to go ahead, and again I want you to work as I work. We're going to add another global variable, and we're going to call this one frame because we need to keep track of how many frames that we bowl. Okay. Alright, so the next thing after that is I want to adjust the bowl method. Okay, and I'm going to add, alright, a while statement here, and I'm going to add it right here before we actually start the random or execute the random command. So while bowl is not equal, remember we went over these operators, not equal to 2, because remember there are 2 bowls per frame. I want you to do whatever is in this loop. So it's going to do the random thing here, okay? So it's going to execute the random command, and then it's going to go ahead and assign the score to random, and then it's going to go through a series of if statements, and then we're going to call the evaluate. So let's go ahead and flesh this out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and change this from there. I'm going to make that a local variable and then declare it up higher, score equals 0. And then I also want to keep track of my bowls here, okay? So I need to have a variable for that. That's a counter. It's going to serve as a counter, bowl, okay? And I'm also going to initialize that to 0. And just, there we go. Alright, so while bowl, which starts out 0, is not equal to 2, do whatever is inside of this while statement. Okay, so we bowl. Alright, then we assign that to score, and then let's add an if statement here. If score is equal to 10, because remember, if, and I spelled that wrong, let's make sure I spell it right, 10, which is a strike, we don't have to bowl another time. And we're going to go ahead and enter our if statement there, our control statement. Then we want you to go ahead, or we want the program to evaluate what score is. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and make adjustments to our counter. I could do it 2 ways. I could do it this way, bowl equals bowl plus 1. Or we could use the new method that we talked about earlier. I can just go ahead and put bowl and the iteration there. Okay. All right. And so that allows me to determine where we are with that. Okay. Now I need to go ahead and we have another counter here for frame. I want to go ahead and declare frame and make that frame is equal to frame plus 1. So remember, we're trying to keep track of how many frames we bowl. Alright. So at the end of this, it's going to go ahead and process through this or proceed through this. So I'm going to bowl here, and remember, whenever we bowl in a frame, we have 2 turns or 2 chances to bowl. Alright. Now, if that is greater or equal to 10, it's a strike, and it's just going to exit this and proceed to the next section. Okay, so we've gone through this and we've made adjustments to the bowl function, and so we want to go ahead and add to this the call to evaluate the score. And we're passing score there. Okay. And make sure I spelled that right. Yes, I spelled it wrong. Okay. So we bowl. If we bowl a 10, we exit this. Okay. And we go straight to that. And I need to go ahead and adjust the frame here so that we're counting also here, because this, once this is done, it's going to leave the while loop. Okay, so we want to make sure that we are iterating our frame. We're counting our frames, so that will count as a frame. All right, so the next thing we want to do is adjust our calculate total score method. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add to this some lines of code. So where it says total score, I'm going to go ahead and add a statement there. So when it's being print, it's going to print to the screen how many frames you have bowled. Okay, so it's going to say you have bowled, okay, how many frames of 10 frames, and output the score there. Okay, let me make sure I put quotation mark and terminate that. So that helps you keep track of how many frames you've done. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is determine if you have reached frame 10. Okay, so if frame is less than or equal to 10, okay, we're going to go ahead and bowl again. So as long as frame is not equal to 10, as long as it's less than 10, we're going to keep bowling. Alright, so that's going to call the method down here, bowl again, and ask you if you want to bowl again. Okay, and I'm going to add the else statement here. Else it will print to the screen, and I'm going to add a space here for readability. Now do that by adding the console.writeLine command with nothing in it. Alright. Your game is over. Your score is, and we want to add the total score variable. Okay. Go to our next line, console.writeLine, and we want to say goodbye. Okay, so let's make sure we have everything right. I need to go ahead and terminate this block of code with a semicolon here, and that should fix the error there. Okay, and everything should work fine. So let's go ahead and test that piece of code. Okay, so I press enter to begin. Okay, and see here, it says you have vote 1 of 10 frames. Your total score is 3. Press enter to bowl again. Enter, press 1, alright? Here it is. And now it's keeping track of how many frames we bowled. Here we see 2 of 10. Okay, bowl again. And this will keep going until we get to 10 frames. And there it is. Okay. So you bowled a 9. You bowled. Well, something happened here because it should not have gone to this. So it went past our 10 times, and the game is over. So let's see what happened here and fix that. Okay, so we were getting an error. It went beyond 10. So I'm going to go ahead and make adjustments here and do that. Get rid of the equal sign to say, wow, if the frame is less than 10. And let's run it and see what happens. All right. Okay, press enter, press enter. There we go. We see you bowled 6. You have bowled 2 of 10 frames, 3 of 10 frames. So it's keeping track of how many frames we've bowled. And when we get to 10, it should prompt us to stop. Okay. And I'm getting error because I didn't input the 1 there. So let's try this. 1, 1, 1. I didn't set it up to handle inputting anything other than 1 or 2. Okay. There we are. Went to 10 frames. Your game is over. Okay, your score is 80. Goodbye. And just need to fix that E there. So you get the point. So I hope you understand how we can use these different methods. We use the if control statement, and then we use the while loop statement to do this. I need you to go ahead and make the adjustments to that program and email it to me. All right, thank you. Bye.